Hollywood presents soft disclosure. 12 Monkeys follows the journey of a time traveler from the post-apocalyptic future who appears in present day on a mission to locate and eradicate the source of a deadly plague that will nearly destroy the human race. A deadly virus released in 1996 wipes out almost all of humanity, forcing remaining survivors to live underground. A group known as the Army of the 12 Monkeys is believed to be behind the release of the virus. In 2035, James Cole is a prisoner living in a subterranean compound beneath the ruins of Philadelphia. Cole is selected for a mission, where he is trained and sent back in time to locate the original virus in order to help scientists develop a cure. Stargate SG-1, an interstellar teleportation device, found in Egypt, leads to a planet with humans resembling ancient Egyptians who worship the god Ra. For the last 6 years, he reveals, the U.S. military has been operating a Stargate program out of Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. Led by the flagship Team SG-1, they have visited hundreds of worlds, and thousands more remain to be explored. The ambassadors are dumbfounded, and find the entire story quite hard to believe. But U.S. Senator Kinsey soon arrives to join the meeting, and insists that it is all true, though he himself has been opposed to the program in the past. Politics. The reason for the briefing is simple. Despite SG-1's thwarting of several alien attacks on Earth, the planet is now threatened by Anubis, the most powerful foe we have faced yet. The 5 nations represented at the meeting make up the bulk of Earth's military capabilities, and only a coordinated, worldwide military effort could hope to stand up against another Goa'uld invasion. Westworld. A robot malfunction creates havoc and terror for unsuspecting vacationers at a futuristic, adult-themed amusement park. HBO later announced that Westworld had been taken to series and that it would premiere in 2015. In August 2015, HBO released the first teaser, which revealed it would premiere in 2016. It is the second series based on Crichton's original story after the 1980s Beyond Westworld, which aired only 3 episodes on CBS before being cancelled. During the research, the films of Sergio Leone provided reference points for the characters and visuals. Novels by Philip K. Dick informed them about dilemmas concerning artificial intelligence. A recitation from William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. These violent delights have violent ends is made part of the show as a virus trigger within the hosts that alters how they perceive their existence. The series explores ideas about the bicameral mind by Julian Jaynes, about the existence of 2 separate minds, one that gives instructions and another that performs them, and how consciousness comes from breaking down the wall between them by exposing the individual to new kinds of stimuli. Interstellar. A team of explorers travel through a wormhole in space in an attempt to ensure humanity's survival. Sometime in the 21st century, a series of crop blights on Earth threatens humanity's survival. Joseph Cooper, a widowed former NASA pilot, runs a farm with his father-in-law, son Tom, and daughter Murphy, who believes her bedroom is haunted by a poltergeist. Living in a post-truth society, Cooper is reprimanded at school for telling Murphy that the Apollo missions did indeed happen. Cooper encourages Murphy to carefully observe and record what she sees. They realize that a pattern of dust on the floor is created by gravity variations and are able to decode it as a set of geographic coordinates. Cooper and Murphy follow them to a secret facility, where Cooper's former professor, Dr. Brand, continues to operate NASA in secrecy after it was officially defunded. Brand reveals that a wormhole which appeared near Saturn opens a pathway to a distant galaxy with potentially habitable planets.
Blade Runner. A Blade Runner must pursue and try to terminate 4 replicants who stole a ship in space and have returned to Earth to find their creator. In Los Angeles in November 2019, ex-police officer Rick Deckard is detained by Officer Gaff and brought to his former supervisor, Bryant. Deckard, whose job as a Blade Runner was to track down bioengineered beings known as replicants and retire, a euphemism for killing them, is informed that 4 have come to Earth illegally. As Tyrell Corporation Nexus 6 models, they have only a 4-year lifespan and may have come to Earth to try to extend their lives. Deckard begins his investigation at the Tyrell Corporation to ensure that the test works on Nexus 6 models. While there, he discovers that Dr. Eldon Tyrell's assistant Rachel is an experimental replicant who believes herself to be human. Rachel has been given false memories to provide an emotional cushion. As a result, a more extensive test is required to determine whether she is a replicant. Brain scan. A teenager is part of an interactive video game where he kills innocent victims. Later, the murders become real. A lonely boy named Michael Brower, Edward Furlong, lives an isolated existence in his absent father's mansion. Michael's mother was killed in a car accident, which also permanently injured his leg. He spends his spare time stalking his crush, a typical girl next door named Kimberly. A huge fan of horror films and video games, Michael's only friend is a similar-minded misfit named Kyle. Kyle tells Michael about a new, ultra-realistic game called Brainscan. Intrigued, Michael sends away for the first disc. The game begins strangely, with a warning screen informing him that the experience has much in common with hypnotic suggestion. During his first experience with the game, Michael is encouraged to act as a psychopathic murderer by the game's host, an entity known as Trickster. Altered states. A Harvard scientist conducts experiments on himself with a hallucinatory drug and an isolation chamber that may be causing him to regress genetically. Edward Jessup is a university professor of abnormal psychology who, while studying schizophrenia, begins to think that our other states of consciousness are as real as our waking states. Jessup begins experimenting with sensory deprivation using a flotation tank, aided by 2 like-minded researchers, Parrish and Rosenberg. At a faculty party he meets fellow wonderkid and biological anthropologist Emily, and the 2 eventually marry. The film skips ahead 7 years. Eddie and Emily have 2 daughters, are on the brink of divorce, and reunite with the couple who first introduced them. When Edward hears of a Mexican tribe that experiences shared illusion states, he travels to Mexico to participate in what is apparently an ayahuasca ceremony. The tribe refer to one of the ingredients of the mixture they use as first flower. An indigenous elder is seen with Banistriopsis copy root in his hand prior to cutting Jessup's hand, adding blood to the mixture he is preparing. Immediately after consuming the mixture, Edward experiences bizarre, intense hallucinations. He returns to the U.S. with a tincture and continues taking it to trigger his ability to experience altered states of consciousness. Ender's Game. Young Ender Wiggin is recruited by the international military to lead the fight against the Formex, a genocidal alien race which nearly annihilated the human race in a previous invasion. Humanity, having begun to explore the universe and master interplanetary spaceflight, encounters an alien race dubbed the Buggers. The discovery of a Bugger-forward base in the asteroid Eros leads to war between the species and the destruction of a Bugger colonizing force. The battle to recapture Eros results in the discovery of advanced alien technology, including gravity manipulation. Political conflicts on Earth between 3 ruling parties, the Hegemon, Pulmarch, and Strategos, are put aside in the face of the threat from the Buggers. Ostensibly in preparation for the expected third invasion, an international fleet is established, with headquarters on Eros. Increasingly advanced starships are built and secretly launched to attack the Buggers' homeworlds. Contagion. Healthcare professionals, government officials and everyday people find themselves in the midst of a worldwide epidemic. Returning from a Hong Kong business trip, Beth Emhoff, Gwyneth Paltrow, has a layover in Chicago to rendezvous with a former lover before returning to her family in suburban Minneapolis. She appears to have contracted a cold during her trip. Her 6-year-old son from a previous marriage, Clark, also becomes symptomatic and is sent home from school. Beth's condition worsens and 2 days later she collapses with severe seizures. Her husband, Matt Damon, rushes her to the hospital, but she dies of an unknown cause. Mitch returns home and finds that Clark has also died from a similar infection. Mitch is put in isolation but seems to be immune to the disease. As more and more persons become infected with no cure in sight, they face decaying social order and rampant looting of stores and homes. In Atlanta, representatives of the Department of Homeland Security meet with Dr. Ellis Cheever, Lawrence Fishburne, of the CDC and express fears that the disease is a bioweapon intended to cause terror over the Thanksgiving weekend. Jupiter ascending. At the beginning of the story, Earth's residents are unaware that the human species on Earth and countless other planets were established by families of transhuman and alien royalty for the purpose of later harvesting the resulting organisms to produce a type of youth serum for the elites on still other planets. After the death of the matriarch of the House of Abrasax, the most powerful of the alien dynasties, her children, Balaam, Eddie Redmayne, Calic, Twopence Middleton, and Titus, Douglas Booth, quarrel over the inheritance, with Balaam inheriting an enormous refinery on Jupiter and Titus declaring his intention to dismantle the youth serum trade, of which Earth is the next intended source. Moon. Astronaut Sam Bell has a quintessentially personal encounter toward the end of his 3-year stint on the Moon, where he, working alongside his computer, Geordi, sends back to Earth parcels of a resource that has helped diminish our planet's power problems. In 2035, Lunar Industries has made a fortune after an oil crisis by building Sarang Station, an automated lunar facility to mine the alternative fuel helium-3 from moon rocks, rich in the material. The facility is fully automated, requiring only a single human to maintain operations, oversee the harvesters, and launch canisters bound for Earth containing the extracted helium-3. 2 weeks before his return to Earth, Sam suffers from hallucinations of a teenage girl. One such image distracts him while he is out recovering a helium-3 canister from a harvester, causing him to crash his lunar rover into the harvester. Rapidly losing cabin air from the crash, Sam falls unconscious in the rover. Sam awakes in the base infirmary with no memory of the accident. He overhears Geordi receiving instructions from Lunar Industries to prevent him from leaving the base and to wait for the arrival of a rescue team. His suspicions aroused, he manufactures a fake problem to persuade Geordi to let him outside. He travels to the crashed rover, where he finds his unconscious double. He brings the double back to the base and tends to his injuries. The two Sams start to wonder if one is a clone of the other. After a heated argument and physical altercation, they together coerce Geordi into revealing that they are both clones of the original Sam Bell. Official Call of Duty registered Black Ops 3 Ember tease. The third installment of the Call of Duty, Black Ops brings the player to a dark twisted future with a built-up war storyline. Call of Duty transports us into a future dystopia that's both terrifying and believable in another documentary for the game, this time promoting its much-anticipated launch. The teaser trailer, Ember, creates a timeline from the 1990s stretching into the late 21st century, combining both real news clips and live-action footage, showing how technology takes us into an era where modified athletes compete in the Olympics, consumers buy retinal chips at the mall and protesters rail against a kind of evil big science. There's also a suggestion that all this technology has created some kind of super soldier using technologies such as neural connection and bionic limbs. The film ends by asking, how far will we go?